States, which has been it's a program jointly presented by the Office of the Secretary of State and the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Today, in addition to being your facilitator, I'm also going to be your presenter. Until I came to work for the State Library about, I'm starting my 10th year with the State Library, so it's been a while. Adult programming was one of my duties at the library I was working at. And I remember it was always a challenge when you're doing so much. And at that point in time, the collaborative summer library program hadn't added the adult portion to the manual. And it would have made my life so much better. And part of my responsibilities is I am the Washington State Library's representative to the collaborative consortium. And I realized that probably a lot of people didn't realize that about 4 or 5 years ago, the collaborative manual started to include adult programming. And I thought, boy, folks would really benefit from knowing that there's a whole like 30 programs a year that are produced for people to look at, and they're hand done. And so that's where this program came from. It's all for all those adult folks who are programming for adults, and it is so, I know it's one more thing on top of, manning the reference desk, on doing outreach, on everything else. And this is a really easy way to get adult programs done. And so that's what I'm going to be sharing with you today. But before we do that, I wanted to say our 2 technical producers are with us today, Jeremy Stroud, whom you've already met, and Joe Oliver. And I assume they're going to put their tech information in the chat right now.
We've actually made this a little bit easier. Our tech information shows up in the participant panel.
That's right. I forgot about that. Thank you. We've only been doing it for a couple months, and it obviously slipped my mind. I didn't get in till midnight last night from a nice 4-day vacation, so I'm still a little sleepy. But anyway, and we did say who sponsors this. Again, we're part of the Secretary of State of Washington and of State Library, and we are funded by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. So now we're going to ask that you please check in. The Office of Financial Management here at the State of Washington asks us whenever we do a program to say if you are more than one person is listening, what library organization you want, and your city and state. If you will just type that in right now, I see some of you are already typing away, and others of you, if you can do that quickly, then we can move on to the programming. So just if everyone would do that, that's wonderful. And just one perfect. I see Hope's got it in. Pioneer, New York.
And apologies. The quick 2-question survey has been slightly tweaked. I think it's 3 questions now.
Okay, so you're going to change that slide.
I will. I forgot that we said how many questions on there. Okay.
Well, I'm delighted to see we have participants joining us from all across the nation. In addition to folks from the state of Washington. And of course, you can share this with your colleagues. It will be archived. Jeremy usually gets these things up in about 3 hours after the presentation is over. So I think, have we got most of it in, Jeremy, do you think?
I'm compiling right now.
Okay, so we're going to, and we will ask you via the text. If you didn't do it, we will ask you too, because like I say, we do ask. And then at the end, it's really like not even a 30-second questionnaire. And that will help us out. The Institute of Museum and Library Services is asking us to demonstrate more outcomes. And so we have developed a very easy survey. We hope to give us some data and improve our presentation skills. Okay, so minding the collaborative for adult, I kind of explained why we were doing that. And so what is the collaborative? The Collaborative Summer Library Program began in 1987 when 10 regional libraries in the Midwest came together to plan a joint summer reading program for children. And it's happened in 1987, and the idea was that by combining resources and working with a commercial vendor, they could save money and have a unified, highly well-done promotional and programming project. And I think that's part of the appeal that's why Washington State and most of the majority of the states, with the exception of I think 2 or 3, support this program so heartily. It allows us to have a uniform summer reading program across the state. So if there's the possibility of doing statewide library summer program advertising, you know, most of your libraries are all going to be doing the same thing. It's just not only that, but if you, I know I worked as a children's librarian, and it's so much easier to have a manual with a graphic art. You don't have to do a contract with a graphics artist. You don't have to do your own publicity. There's just so much the manual provides for you that, you know, it's a wonderful tool, and we highly support it. And in addition to being part of the United States, others have joined us as well. Well, these are part of the United States, but these people as well, it's the island of Yap in Micronesia, because there are quite a few, but they come to the collaborative as well and use this. It is a wonderful thing, and I would, I can't say how valuable we all find it. So what does the manual provide? Well, I think one of the things that I really like to emphasize with people is when I go out, this manual is one I also give to really tiny libraries like tribal libraries. And I say to them, if you have a competent volunteer, if you have a competent teenager, a competent senior citizen, you can hand them the manual, and everything you need, if someone is about age 16 and up, is right there spelled out as to how to do programming. And so it is just a wonderful resource. And it provides not only the preparation tips. I mean, sometimes you get so rushed when you're on the desk and you have to do this. It gives you kind of a checklist of things to do, and then ahead of time it asks you to think about these things. So for example, if you think, oh, I'm going to, you know, show a movie, well, what about the public performance rights? It tells you where to right away, tells you the 2 places or several places where you can go to get those, to buy those rights. It says, are you going to register? And it gives you registration logs. It tells you how to do it. It gives suggestions for how to do room decoration and displays. Again, if this is one, you know, even if you only do, I remember when I was doing this, I did a family reading collaboration with the children's, and what I did was I said, for every book you read, all you have to do is, we had a little sliver of paper, we said, fill out your, you know, put a title of something you read, and then at the end of the summer we had 6 prizes. You would not believe how much interest that generated. You know, I think we asked Barnes & Noble for a Kindle, at that time a Nook. We asked for, you know, $25 gift certificate from Starbucks. Just very simple. I mean, for under $100, we asked, which the friends provided, we provided the prizes. And that generated a lot. And a lot of the teenagers, we didn't have a teen program at that particular time that was, and they were willing to do it with their parents. They could join, and we didn't make a difference between audiobook or ebook or whatever. Just, you know, drop it in. It was another time of doing it, and it was tremendously successful. So the other thing that this asks you to do is it asks you to evaluate, and this is more and more you're going to find that if you interact with your state library, you're going to be asked to provide evaluation of your programs and materials. And this is something that is increasingly funders are asking for. They're saying, what difference did this make in the lives of the people who attended? What's your outcome? And so that is provided as well, and that's something that's just great. So here I was talking about how you could hand this to anybody. And this is, it says to you, think about these things. What's your goals and objectives? You know, what do you intend this program to do? Is this going to be a one-time program, or is it going to be a series? It asks you, it steps you through all these things. And I especially like this thing. It says, reach out to people with special needs, minorities, or underserved groups. You know, we don't often, sometimes we mean to do this, but it just isn't in the top of our consciousness. So, you know, it's like, oh, or I also like the fact, are you going to target new emerging adults? The budget, the donations, and then how will you document your program? In other words, again, asking you to think about evaluation. So it's a step-by-step. So you can hand this to somebody who's just graduated, or a brand new person, or someone who's helping you, and just use it as your you know, kind of a checklist to keep in mind when you do your programs. It's just very helpful. And I will be happy to take, I forgot to say this, if anyone has any questions as I go along, go ahead and type them in chat, and we will I'll be happy to answer them right there, or you can raise your hand and I will stop and take any questions there. Promotion. Many times people have to know that you're doing a program for it to be any success at all, and I think this is one that librarians really struggle with. If you don't have a PR, and many of us don't have a PR person attached to our library if we're smaller libraries, you know, getting the word out. I can't tell you how many times I've written a press release, and this gives you a template for it. It tells you exactly what to do, and for those of us who haven't had training as to how to write a press release, that's tremendously helpful. It also it gives you reproducibles for posters, for flyers, suggestions for bookmarks, logos. You know, in the media, again, it tells you, you know, how suggests you should tweet, how you can do it on Facebook, how you can do a blog. I mean, again, it tells you how to handle the PR. And then in regards to the staff, it tells you, you know, gives suggestions for how the staff can promote it. You know, I think one thing we forget that's really, really important is whenever you're going to do a program, the most successful promotion you can do is to get your frontline staff behind it and have them talk it up, have them do it. If you have a promotional bookmark, if the staff are willing to, with every checkout, you know, put a flyer about the program with checkout if it applies, if they're willing to talk it up. You know, when you're doing your program, make sure that you brief the staff and have all the staff behind you in promoting your programs. So those are things to do it. The other thing that I really like is it tells you how to reach out to businesses. And many of us use businesses as a way to get our programs funded, and it gives you ways and suggestions as to how you can get businesses involved. Again, an excellent reminder for those of us who've been doing programs for a long time, or a great checklist for beginner librarians, volunteers to do that. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the 2016 summer reading, and this is what the programs were right out of the 2016 summer reading manual. And it was called Exercise Your Mind, Read. And I wanted to call your attention to this because everything that the collaborative does also is printed in Spanish. So in addition to, and they are working on doing, getting other translations as well, but Spanish is the most universal, and so all of our materials come with Spanish already translated into Spanish. So if you want to do outreach to a Spanish language community or a community, a Latin American community, you know, it is available in Spanish, and so that's really great. So, but these, so here we go. So in this was what the suggestions were this year, and for these topics, there were, for wellness, there were 6 suggestions, and here they are. Host a wellness fair, like Can't I Lose Weight, Walk This Way, Wellness Fitness Challenge, Find the Time to Be Well, Be Smart and Safe About Exercise and Food Safety. So it's like that. Under each one, Healthy Minds had 5 program suggestions, Get Moving had 5, Read for Your Life had 6, and Hale and Healthy Hearty Habits had 6 programs. So right there, you had you know, 30 programs right there. And just think, most of the time librarians don't throw things away. So if your librarian, your youth services person has kept the book, you can go back and you can find, so there's 30 program suggestions for you for every year. You can go back probably at least 5 years to get programming suggestions. You don't have to do it exactly, but it'll give you ideas. And again, it's a quick shortcut for you. One thing I wanted to highlight about Read for Your Life is one of the programs in there was Skyping with authors, and it gave you a step-by-step program instruction as to how to get an author to Skype with you. Many of us don't have the budget to bring an author, you know, possibly a nationally known author, to our library, but many authors, national authors, are willing to Skype with a book club, with a program, and it tells you how to set this up. It also, most of us have book groups, but if you've never organized a book group, or you used to have one and it fell apart, you want to try it again, but you want to see it, organize it in a different way, one of the programs under Read for Your Life is how to organize a book club. So it is, again, just a programming shortcut for you. I wanted to talk to you about the reproducibles. In each of these, you can use them for publicity, for this one is a log if you wanted to do it, reading log, a wellness tracker. This is exactly from the program, Exercise Your Mind Wellness Tracker, what you were going to do. You can see, so again, it would be all you would need to do it. A bookmark, again, in Spanish. And this is actually full color here. These are, we copied these in black and white, but these are in full color. And then I wanted to talk to you, and this is from the year before. This is from, I think this was from the sport. Okay, it is from the same program. I'm going to talk about several. But I wanted to talk to you, many of us do family programs. And so especially in the grade school programming, you should look for things, and it's a little hard to see here, but you can see in the grade school programs, they do it primary, and then primary, intermediate, and family. So for this one, it's kind of hard to see on my screen, but it's calling all families, and they have it structured for 3 different things. They have it for primary and intermediate. In other words, primary is probably K through 3rd, intermediate is 4th and 5th, and family, of course, is to do it for the whole family. And so also, as the program, as you go through it, you'll see this icon, the one up in the middle of the slide, and that's one that says this is a family program, and this is, teens don't have that. And the early literacy section, which is before, currently the manual has 4 sections. It has an early literacy, which is preschool, before children enter school, so there's a whole bunch of programming for preschools. And then there's programming for grade school children, and then teens, a teen program, and then the adult program. So again, but the youth services, the one that's aimed at like K through 4th, 5th grade, has these family things called out. And then Circuits of Motion, you can see it has it both for primary and family. Nursery Rhyme Relays, primary, international, and families. So those are something that I think many of us, lots of times now, our families are so busy that if, when parents get home, they want to interact with their children as much as possible. So if you can provide a family program, that's something that I think many families would appreciate. They would like to come to something to have as much time with their kids as they can. So that's the type of programming as an adult programmer you might consider. Don't think about it just as the youth services, but think of something you can do. Okay, now this is several programs that are in the way back from the 2011 programming, and I'm going to talk about 3 programming ideas from this one. And this was a travel theme. And so the first one, I know that whenever I did anything that involved chocolate, I got a huge turnout. And so there were several programs along with this one, but I wanted to highlight one of them, and it was Dying for Chocolate, Murder Mysteries Associated with Chocolate Sweets. This one, I know you can do, there were just, many of you can just, if you just pulled out all of your murder mysteries that had chocolate in the title or sweets in the title, and then you could, of course, offer chocolate tasting. You could have somebody, if you have a chocolatier in your community, you could have that chocolatier come in and talk about making chocolate. I know my husband and I went to a program, actually there was a chocolatier in downtown Seattle, Pike Place Market, and he had us make our own chocolate confections. And so if you are lucky enough to have a candy maker in your community who might do the same thing, I think chocolate is always super popular, and it would be something that you'd get a good turnout from. And then I was surprised. I had no idea that licorice tasted different from country to country. And I put the website here. That is a commercial website, but for $30, you can send away and get probably what looked like about an 18-inch wheel with 4 different types of licorice that would look like they had about 30 to 40 pieces of different licorice. You could have a licorice tasting, and you could have, and then talk about the licorice, that particular thing talks about the tradition of, why the licorice tastes the way it does, things like that. And that would be just different and allow people, again, to sample. People love to sample food. And then coffee, tea. A tea, you could either have a coffee break or a tea time, and most of our communities now have specialty coffee places in our communities. And so if you have someone, coffee is grown and enjoyed many places around the world. So you could invite a knowledgeable coffee shop owner to explain the different kinds of coffee, the ways of grinding, bean, roasting, and serving. And then, of course, you must have a coffee, little samples of coffee at the end. You could have someone talk about the fair trade issues, the social justice issues around coffee. And then, of course, another thing, you could offer recipes. Pull out all of your recipe books. Another way of promoting your Recipe Connect collections. You could pull out all of your your recipe books that offer different recipes for coffee drinks and coffee desserts. And then, as part of this, they offer three books that you could buy: Coffee Companion, A Connoisseur's Guide, God in a Cup, The Obsessive Quest for a Perfect Cup of Coffee, I Love Coffee, Over 100 Easy and Delicious Coffee Drinks. And then there are 2 websites that they recommend. Coffee Review. This is an online magazine that features coffee reviews by a distinguished panel of coffee experts. Talk About Coffee, and this one is www.talkaboutcoffee.com, coffee_culture HTML. And this one talks about, it includes information on coffee and espresso makers and a brief history of the origin of the coffee table. So a variety of programs here, and again, all involving travel, but a different twist on it. Any questions? I've been talking quite quickly. I'm not seeing any yet. Don't hesitate to, if you do, I'll be happy to answer them. Okay, the theme for 2013 was underground, and so this one had, what they did was they said, well, why don't you do programs regarding underground movements, like, for example, the resistant movements of World War II. Another program idea would be the Underground Railroad that helped slaves escape to the north. They wanted to, so anything that was kind of secretive. I know there is a series of programs about undergrounds of famous cities. You could do Pompeii. Something would be under Pompeii. The other thing, they used another dig into. You can see how that would be just something you could run with, dig into, and then supply the topic of your choice. But this one they highlighted was dig into sounds and scenes from the 70s. But it also could have been just as easily an emphasis on the 50s, the 60s, the 20s, the 30s, and then you would highlight a decade of time that you could, do both. You could do a programming with DVDs if you have a series of DVDs that you bought from PBS, like Ken Burns' Prohibition. That one is certainly, it's not exactly a decade, but you could have books, again, that emphasized your drinks, how to make alcoholic drinks. You could talk about, do you have any things where there were spills, or, all of that about that. You could do it. Another favorite one is to do a gardening program. If you have in your, if you have a state agricultural extension agent, you could ask them to come and promote a program. Also for, I think, gardening, and this was in Chapter 2 of the children's section that same year, it had some family suggestions. It said, how about it had a program on growing peppers. You could either grow hot or peppers or cooking peppers, and then they also had another one on growing vegetable soup. So you could give tips and tricks on how to get your vegetable garden doing. But my favorite program from this one was one called Dig It Up, a Scavenger Hunt. And the reason I liked this one was that it emphasized learning the how to search for things in the library. And it was completely printed out, 2 pages. You would be able to just, on page 198 and 199 of that year's book for adults, it had, this is the instructions. Start with one section, and there are 4 sections, and complete all or some of the activities in it. As you complete each activity, place a candy nugget in your bucket or bag. Move to the next section and continue until you've completed an activity or activities in each section. And the first one was dig it up in print. The second was dig it up in non-print media. The third was dig up trouble with these hands-on activities. And the fourth was dig it up online. And so basically each time they have about 5 things, and it was again something you could do for adults, and to teach them how to use your catalog. And it said, browse the library's collection or use the catalog to complete these tasks. And their suggestions were find a nonfiction book about magical wee folk and name 2 of these mischief makers that live in caves or underground. Look in the catalog under fairies fiction or fairies juvenile literature. Find and read aloud a poem about a leprechaun, goblin, dwarf, gnome, or troll. What classic science fiction book features an eccentric professor and his nephew encountering an ancient creature and terrifying dangers underground? It's by the author who wrote Around the World in 80 Days. So you can see they give you, solid hints, and then has all of these things. And depending upon what you had, it would be very easy to customize this scavenger hunt for your library to make sure that it hit things you did. So I thought, again, 2-page, very easy to do, everything included in a great program idea. So previous to this year was 2015 Escape the Air. It was a heroes theme. And 3 programming ideas that I picked out was, the first one was feathers and fedoras. And this one on page 23 of the adult manual would be a great one if you need to do a fundraiser. It basically was a great idea to, they called it Feathers and Fedoras, a prohibition party. They suggested ragtime music, jazz music, using a black and white theme. You could dress up as flappers and gangsters. You can display books and movies from that time. They suggested one of the things was screening Ken Burns' film series, Prohibition. And but it was just what I really liked, because when I was working in the library on the floor, we put on a big party for our volunteers, and I thought to myself, wow, if I'd had this year, it would have just given me the entire thing, because we always did a big thing where the staff dressed up and we served food and we thanked them, and it was a big party and trying to come up with a new theme, but every year was like, oh, what are we going to do? And here it was, Feathers and Fedoras. It would have just, there it was, all out, all laid out, great decorating, the food, the entertainment, the whole thing, step by step. The other thing, so that was a great, and then also it would, just a simple twist, if your friends in the library needed to do a fundraising party, you could just hand this to the friends and say, here, look at this, what do you think about this? And so again, it's another way to, for a group, great ideas, you can flesh it out, you could customize it for your own situation, but the bones, most everything is there. Another one that I liked from 2015 was Rate the Villains. Passive programming is kind of coming into vogue in many libraries I speak with, and what this program was is it did the brackets like March Madness for the basketballs, and it had, what you would do is you'd put up a big brackets just like you would, and then you'd select villains. And what they had is they said you would choose 16 names to set up in brackets of 8 pairs, and they gave you 16 possible villains, and you could easily swap out. They suggested Count Dracula, Darth Vader, Freddy Krueger, Gollum, Gordon Gekko, HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, Hannibal Lecter, Hans Lada from Inglourious Bastards, Joan Crawford from Mommy Dearest, Khan, of course, from Star Trek II, Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacres, Lord Voldemort from, of course, the Harry Potter, Norman Bates, Psycho, Nurse Ratched, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Roy Batty from Blade Runner, and the Wicked Witch of the West from The Wizard of Oz. But if you didn't like those villains, they also gave you a web resource of AFI's 100 Greatest Heroes and Villains. And the website is listed there. The American Film Institute's list of 100 movie heroes and villains. But that would be fun, because you could just put up a great big poster and, and then have the first week, the instructions were, have people choose vote. The first week, the participants vote for one of each 8 pairs, and then you compile it and post the 8 weeks, the 8 winners that went on. Second week, the participants vote for one of each of the 4 remaining pairs. Again, compile, post. Third week, you vote for one of the final 2 pairs, and the fourth week, you vote for one of the final 2 villains. And so, you know, you could do as much or as little as you wanted to. But I mean, it's something that for your regulars who come into the library every week, it's something fun. I've also seen passive programming where there's a puzzle to solve for families. You can do this for STEM activities. There's many kind of passive programming ideas. That's something that engages your community. It keeps them, gives you an opportunity to promote things, promote books, promote films, tie this in. It's, again, a great passive program ideas. And then the last one was they suggested a travel program. And they suggested going, if you have a knowledgeable travel agent in your community, ask them to talk about, you know, what it takes to plan a trip to foreign lands, or talk about a special place where they lead tours. And then, of course, many of you have already done this, but another good thing is to invite a car club to put on a car show in your parking lot. Or I've also heard of putting on this would be a great family program, asking people to bring equipment, especially if you aren't in a rural area, and equipment would be fun. Maybe do a tractor with a payloader. You might have a specialized, you know, the trucks. You might ask your utility to bring a truck where someone goes up in a bucket truck. Or you could just think of equipment, but have something out of the ordinary for families to come and look at. Of course, fire trucks are always, you know, exciting for people to look at and taco too. Maybe you have an antique fire truck or something, but a car show, another programming idea, and tells you how to do it, how to get it. Well, for, again, the sports theme, this was last year, one idea that I thought was great was to do a pancake race, to replicate the pancake race. And you may have heard about the great pancake race that goes between Liberal, Kansas and Olney, Buckinghamshire, where they have to run back and forth flipping a pancake. And so they would have you recreate that. And again, all of the directions are in that. So you would bake and cook pancakes and then run them. And the indoor Iditarod sounded particularly fun to me. What this would be is that you built using cardboard. You'd have to get, you know, cardboard containers from a local appliance store or big sheets of contact. And then the idea was to have families build these sleds and then put someone on the sled, and then in a meeting room you would race around obstacles and you would pull someone. The team had to be the dogs, and they would pull people through an obstacle course. And I thought that sounded like a lot of fun. For families or teens or groups of people. And then I thought this was interesting, a parachute drop. How slow can you go? They would have, you would have an adult who was comfortable climbing up on a ladder, and then people could put together parachutes and different varieties of parachutes, and then see which took the longest to float down. Who was the best at having a parachute catch the air in such a way as that instead of going down really fast, it went down very slowly. So I thought that was an interesting way, and I can see that being a great family program. Going, gone. Record making paper airplanes. Again, this is one where I can see making this an adult programming by having a local aviation expert come in and talk to you about why paper airplanes work, why different designs work differently. If you have an aeronautical engineer, talk about lift, talk about programs, and then, you know, give them paper airplanes if they wish to make, or, but again, an interesting idea with something hands-on. And then this is one that I thought there is an increasing emphasis on getting our early children in our communities prepared for school. And the people who come to your library are very concerned. They love to read, or they enjoy reading. Many of them do. And so they probably will want to pass on their enjoyment to young people in their life, little ones. And so I would suggest a program, and I made this one up, but it was one that I got an idea as I worked through this, as I went through the books to prepare this program. I thought, how do I turn my favorite preschooler into a reader? And if you went through the beginning section, which is always the baby, through, you could pull out a whole bunch of what we call knee bouncers, or things that where you, lap games, where you play with the baby, and maybe some of you are remembering a rhyme like pony girl, and you're bouncing in time as you sing this, won't you be my pony girl? And then you go, please say yes, don't say no, and then here it is, you go fast, giddy up, giddy up, giddy up, and then you lead the child way back, whoa! And of course, things like that are in the Early Childhood Manual. So you could pull out those rhymes, compile them together in a manual or a page, and then you could also do lists of books from the early literature section. Every single program has lists of books and web pages to do it. So you could compile book lists that work for your community for 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and then give those. That's another thing. And then you would want to talk about the 1,000 books. I know lots of libraries are already doing this, but sometimes they're tracking. They give their families with babies a book that encourages families to read 1,000 books before kindergarten, to expose children to that many different words, sounds, literatures. And then if you don't have a youth services person in your library, you could learn the ways from reading these books yourself as to how to promote reading skills when you read to your favorite preschoolers. Because if you're a grandma, if you're an aunt, you're an uncle, and you have the opportunity to read with a small child, there's a certain way to do it that promotes reading skills. I started out my career as a youth services librarian, but they have now developed programs that make reading to children much richer. When I first started out, we didn't run our finger along the text to show which direction we begin to lead from. We didn't point to the first big letter and say, is this a C? There's techniques. There's certain techniques that you can do just informally as you read with a child on your lap that will help promote reading. And that's something as a community we really want to do. So again, this is an example of how just looking through the book can spark an idea, and you can just go with it. It's like, oh yeah, I could do this, I could do this. This would be a great adult programming idea. Okay, so if for some reason you don't have a lot of space and there aren't old summer reading materials available, you can purchase them. They're $10, and here is the information that you need in terms of where you can get these. So if you want to, just contact Karen Day at this email here, or phone her, and she will send you the $10. For $10, she'll send you the manual plus whatever it costs to ship, which I would imagine would be around $15. And I think that you will find it very useful. Like I say, programming ideas. There are at least in 30 ideas for every manual, if not many, many more. So, are there any questions? That's just a whirlwind tour of what you might do with the summer reading manuals. And they're going to be coming out very soon. I haven't received notification yet, but usually at the end of September the manuals arrive at the State Library and then they're shipped out from there. So you should be getting, so when the summer manual come for this year, and this year is going to be build, the theme is build, and it's the same across, for the first time it's the same across the early literacy, the youth, the teen, and the adults, and it's Build a Better World. So there will be things coming out. Make sure that you ask for the adult programming section. If your youth services person gets it, you say, you know, I would really like the adult programs. And then I think you'll find that you have an additional 30 programs of new and fresh ideas. Any questions? Well, if you think of any, I think Jeremy will go to our we will go to our next slide, the evaluation. Oh, web tour, here it comes. And if you would, we really would appreciate it if you just would, I think it is 3, if you move it down on, oh, wait a minute, I guess it is 4 questions. And it shouldn't take you very long, and just, you can click on that. We'd really appreciate this. And you just, and like I say, it shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds. And once you've done this, we will say thank you. And I'll be happy. The program will be up in by noon today. So if you would, I'd really appreciate you taking this, and this will tell us whether or not you got what you wanted to from this program, or if we needed to tweak it. So again, thank you very much for your participation, and once you take this survey, our program is done. Okay.